Robin and Morris, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
I like that. It's nice.
Thank you.
Smashing.
Nice kids.
That was done in America.
It was done at our children's school in Miami.
Mm-hmm. When, in fact, did you first start singing together? What was the first occasion?
1955, in Chorlton-cum-Hardy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's one of the great sin spots of the world.
Very young.
Yeah. But doing what? I mean, what were you doing?
Well, what we used to do when we were little children is, they have children's matinees like they have in the cinemas and places like that. We would try to cadge our way on stage to, most of the kids cadge their way on stage to mime to a record, Elvis Presley, whatever it was, they'd mime, And our record was Tommy Steele's Wedding Bells. At the time we were going to mime to that. How, I do not know, but we were going to. And we broke the record on the way to the theatre, so we'd been practicing singing at home with tin cans on brushes, and
still got that?
So we decided to actually sing instead of mime to a record, and that was the beginning of our career.
That was the debut.
Yeah.
But what kind of? When did you first get together and discover you could harmonise like you can?
The first time I remember, Robin and I were about 6.
Yeah.
Barry was 9. And we sat in the little lounge room, and Barry got his first guitar for his birthday. And the first thing we sang was Lollipop. Which is the Mudlarks sort of thing. It was the only one we just automatically harmonised. Don't ask me where we got the Lollipop from, but it was the only one that seemed to have the harmonising on each step.
Guitar for your birthday.
That's right, my 9th birthday.
Yeah.
So that was the first song we sang.
Can you remember it?
Lollipop, lollipop, lolly, 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 lollipop, lollipop, lolly, 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 lollipop, lollipop, lolly, 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 lollipop, my lollipop.
Oh dear. You went back, of course, to Chorlton-cum-Hardy, didn't you? On this recent.
But 2 weeks ago.
That's right.
Yes.
But was it a very nostalgic trip?
No, they told us to get out. Actually, it was very nostalgic. It was a wonderful day.
Yeah. We saw the little house where we used to live. It was a big house when we lived there, but somehow it got real little. We were stood in the lounge room where the man who lived there now actually is where he keeps his pigeon, So
You got a pigeon in the living room.
Yeah.
Right. Pigeon droppings everywhere.
Flightless pigeons. And that was the lounge room where we first played. And the hardest part for us was imagining how us and Mum and Dad ever got into that room.
Yes.
Because it's like a little
It was
toilet.
5 kids.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, how Mum and Dad got in the bedroom.
It's all 5 kids.
But I mean, how in fact, I suppose it was that kind of circumstance which led you to go to Australia, was it? I mean, that was the...
Well, it was Mum and Dad based. Don't forget we were kids, and it was Mum and Dad who made all the decisions, and they were looking for a better way of life, rather than sitting in the back streets of Manchester, which was not all that pleasant at the best of times, and that's not really a put down on Manchester because we love Manchester, but they were looking for, in that period of time, Dad wasn't earning an awful lot of money, so...
Not a lot, nothing in fact.
Well, that's it. We'll live.
Don't be too nice.
But was it a better life when you got there?
Well, for us, it was like...
Well, it was an adventure. I mean, all we knew of Australia was kangaroos, koala bears, and Aboriginals, and we expected to see them going down the main streets of Brisbane. We said our first view was Perth, wasn't it? The docks of Perth.
That's right, and then Melbourne, and then Brisbane, which
and
is
Woolloomooloo.
Billy Connolly's favourite place.
Billy Connolly's very big in Brisbane.
Yes.
It's a good catch if you're very big in Brisbane. But what did you... I mean, your dad had a fairly hard time, I believe, when you first went out there. I mean, there wasn't the land of opportunity, milk and honey.
Well, he was a bush photographer.
Yeah.
A bush photographer.
Yeah, photographed a lot of bushes.
He used to go out into the small towns and photograph people's families,
Yeah, that's right. People had never even seen a camera.
They had a caravan where they developed their own film, and they would shoot pictures of people and their families where they wouldn't go to a local chemist because they couldn't send off to get film developed.
But that would make a fortune. So, I mean, did you help out? Were you
We did eventually.
We started to do small hotel work, which in actual fact we weren't allowed to be in. So because we were underage, so our father gave up that job and started managing us in a sense. And he would always, we'd have to come in the back door of these places, and we weren't allowed to mix with audiences. We were too young.
What was your act like then? I mean, what you were singing?
Rather dicey, I'm afraid. But we used to do Peter, Paul and Mary segments.
Well, we used to also old songs.
My Old Man's a Dustman. You see, we were kids, and kids and dogs, appeal very much to adults.
And how old were you, in fact, at this time?
At this particular stage that you're talking about, we were probably about 7 and 9. We were 7, Barry was at 9.
And what kind of curious gigs did you do in that period, apart from the clubs? Did you do any other kind of work?
Yeah.
Speedway.
We worked in a speedway, that's right.
Which people throw money. We've actually had people throw money at us.
Well, in between the races, it wasn't during the races. It was mostly in
Although
between.
sometimes I wonder which way it should have been. But they would throw money on the track. We'd sing some songs, and then and we worked in places like dockside clubs where sailors would actually have beer drinking competitions during the show, or there'd be a torrent of water pouring through a tin roof
During monsoons and things like that,
It's true. There used to be people sitting at tables and they would physically fight without standing up. Australians are great, you probably know that too. They'll get into a fight for any reason whatsoever. So they'll sit in front of us while we're singing and they'll be hitting each other across the table.
I hit him again. I suppose the big revolution in your lives will come when the Beatles hit.
That's right.
I mean, that must have changed your thinking about what you wanted to be, the kind of music.
When hair started stretching and point-to-toe shoes started getting rounder and things like that, that was for us.
The pointed toes went out and the Cuban heels came in.
Yeah, Bruce.
The brill cream was out the window.
In that particular era, because it was the time when the Beatles first came around. It was the first time where pop music had a sort of seal of seriousness about it, rather than the solo singers with brill cream, which was before the Beatles. It sort of added a sort of seriousness to the art of popular music, and that's what the Beatles. If the Beatles that did anything that was quite serious,
they made it respectable.
Yes, they sort of made it on a more.
What were you writing songs at that time yourself?
Barry was first, then Robin.
Well, we probably have the track record that beats them all. We had about 13 flop singles in a row.
Really?
Which we haven't beaten yet, folks. You never know your luck.
This is when we lived. This is when we lived in Australia. As kids, because we had a recording contract with
they called it that.
A big record company that had very little time for children. And because we didn't understand as children that there wasn't really a market out there in the teenage market for records, no matter how good the songs may have been at the time, it just didn't appeal.
What was the first record you ever made? Do you remember?
Yeah, hang on.
Yes.
Hang on. Yeah.
What's this guitar doing here, folks?
It's my shit question. This is guitars here.
Now this is completely rehearsed. It is. We don't do this normally. We don't actually sort of spontaneously sing it. We have not rehearsed this song. Okay, what are you doing?
3 Kisses.
Right. This is the first song we recorded. It goes way back, folks. So
You don't really want to hear this, but we'll sing it anyway, right?
Remember, try and visualize 3 little kids. I know it's very easy.
Kiss me once, oh yeah, baby. Kiss me twice, oh yeah, crazy. Kiss me 3 times, the 3 kisses of love. Oh yeah.
Beatles influence.
Morning noon.
Watch the hands.
Yes, right. That's all right. I don't think you want to hear any more.
No, I don't think you do.
But what was the breakthrough though? What was the one?
Breakthrough was
Wine and Women.
was a song called Wine and Women, which
We were a little bit older when this came out, I suppose. Again, unrehearsed. This was in Australia again.
great intro.
Great.
Wine and women and the song will only make me sad. Love and kisses and hearts to think I never had. If this should end, I don't mind. If this should end, I will find. I won't complain. I won't complain. I feel no pain. I feel no pain.
That's it, that one.
When you came to England, it must have been fairly difficult to get yourself established. Was it rough?
Very
Well,
rough. It was-
yeah,
oh, right.
yeah,
Go on.
no, carry on.
I don't mind. Please, no, please.
I don't mind at all. Well, we got off the ship at Southampton and we met this group who were all dressed like the Beatles were in Hard Day's Night with the black cloaks, and all that business. And they said, go back.
Oh, you're doomed.
You're doomed.
Like three shadows, three ghosts, It's on the railway track.
Groups are out. That was a statement which is pretty amazing, considering the groups still do all right, Groups are out, go back. So we didn't. But that was the message. And we went to see people like the Great Organisation and all these people who said, we can get your club work, boys, but groups are out. They said the same thing again to us.
And who's one of the greats we went to see who just...
Yeah, well, don't quote the poor man because,
All right.
He's got 2 phones in his car now.
I'll quote him, but he did say go away.
Yeah. But your big breakthrough came with a couple of marvellous songs that you did.
Yeah.
The New York mining disaster.
That's right.
And Massachusetts.
Yes.
Right. New York mining disaster is one of my favourite songs. But where did it come from? I mean, the idea for that.
Well, Polydor Records, yeah, please.
It was written in a very sort of strange place for that type of song. It was written in the basement of Polydor Records at Stratfield Court in London. And with all the lights out. We write our songs in very, very peculiar places.
Yeah.
And it was on stairs, in the dark. And I suppose, because it was the atmosphere, we didn't realise, of course, it was midday and it was right in the middle of the offices of Polydor at the very time. But the lights were out anyway. Now we just made up the song.
Well,
But
the fact that we couldn't see each other.
But what was the thought line in New York mining disaster? Had there been a New York mining disaster?
No, we made it up.
Well,
There was a mining disaster in
was.
New York about 1935, but it didn't relate to the song at all.
It was in the state of New York.
We made it up. We were just sitting in the dark and we couldn't see each other. And that was where the idea sprang from. So what would it be like trapped in, a mine, for instance, and you can't see each other? Can we write something about that?
Yeah.
We're very pessimistic people.
At the same token, we wanted a song that, as it was our first single in England, we wanted a song to draw attention as well. So a title like that was not to be dismissed,
Well, the idea in those days was to come up with the most ridiculous title you could come up with.
We didn't want to. Matt Monroe could not have recorded this song.
Well, will you play it for us now?
Yeah, sure.
I love this song.
Great.
Yeah, I'm ready.
In the event of something happening